What if I told you that the secret to writing a great story is actually found within the writing process? Yep, it's not really about the techniques or the methods, although those are great. There's actually a secret element that you can find in every good story that basically goes back to the person's writing process, something that they learned or they gleaned from it. In the milieu of all the writing and the experience and everything, there's something very key that you need to have in order to create a good book. And you're in for a treat today because that's exactly what I'm going to be discussing with my guests in today's episode. Hey friend, do you love the smell of books? Maybe you absolutely delight in the sound of a pen gliding across a page as you write. Hi, my name is Jian Rodriguez, and I am a Jesus follower, a writer, entrepreneur, and lover of all things boho and books. In this podcast, I want to take you on a journey of discovering yourself, discovering God and your passions, and how to make your life beautiful and so full that it overflows into the lives of others. And over here, we are not about compartmentalizing life. Oh no. Over here, we talk about holistically taking your life and presenting it as a place where others can be blessed just by knowing you. Are you excited? I am. So snag your favorite mug of tea or a pen and paper, and let's jump in. Because you're listening to Her Reading Life podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Her Reading Life podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to have you here. If this is your first time, welcome. My name is Jian Rodriguez, and I am a novelist and podcaster. And over here on Her Reading Life podcast, I love being able to create a space where you can feel warm and welcomed and honestly just feel like you're sitting on a couch in a coffee shop and we're just talking about books and writing and just enjoying the good company of writers and readers and just being able to explore the beauty of life through words together. Now, I am so excited for today's episode because today we're going to be discussing something that I think isn't talked about half as much as I wish people would talk about it. And that is growing through the writing process. And a secret ingredient that you can find, I think, in pretty much any writer that's written a really good book, you can find that there was something that they found in the writing process that allowed them to write the masterpiece that they wrote. And that's something that I am going to be talking about with today's guests, Abi Lyn Voss, Hope Jian, and Olivia G Booms, who are award-winning short story writers. They were first published in the Voices of the Future Anthology, and I was so thrilled to be able to have them on my podcast. I was part of their street team, launch team. I don't know. Everybody has a different name for it. But I was part of the launch team and was able to have the immense privilege of promoting their book, their anthology. And I am so excited to be able to share this second part of this episode with you. It's truly so wonderful. I was listening to it again and so good. Like, there are so many amazing, inspiring moments and gold nuggets. I literally am going to cut out certain parts and probably post them on Instagram later on or something. Speaking of Instagram, I am also on social media break currently. So if you've been trying to reach me, I do apologize. I've been really on social media break right now. And it's truly been so amazing to be able to detach myself. Mostly I've had, I just check in my DMs very quickly just to make sure that there wasn't anything urgent or anything like that. But honestly, it's been so relieving to be able to take that break and realize how much time I was spending on Instagram. There are moments where I would have been scrolling and I have that urge to scroll, and I find myself realizing, wow, I had so much time that I was simply wasting by scrolling. Or even when I was anxious because I was like, I gotta do something, I start wanting to scroll. I feel that urge to scroll, and then I realize, wait a minute, I don't have to scroll. I could technically just do something else, and really focusing my mind on doing larger tasks, things that, okay, I'm going to say this a different way, but things that are more important, not because Instagram isn't important, but I feel like it's so fleeting. Like you post something and 24 hours later, it doesn't even matter. Sometimes 15 minutes later, it doesn't even matter. It gets buried under the immense avalanche of content that's fired at everybody at such an incredible speed. And I'm not anti-social media. I use it. I do love Instagram. But recently I've been thinking about the amazing feeling that I'm getting by not being on social media. There are literally moments where I was having breakfast and I would think, oh, this is so pretty, I need to post it. And then I'd remember, I'm supposed to be on social media break. And at first it was kind of like an uncomfortable feeling where I'm like, well, if it didn't take a photo, it didn't happen. But at the same time, I'm finding so much immense joy in not having to post anything, which has been absolutely lovely. Of course, I will probably pop on again, but I am actually considering changing some things about my social media plan, my social media ideas, because as some of you know, if you've seen my stories, some time ago, I announced that I was going to be just experimenting a lot more and enjoying kind of the storytelling aspect. And while I've gotten so much better at creating content on Instagram and not having a panic attack every time that I had to post because I would overthink my posts and be super perfectionist, I've kind of nailed it down to a very easy process. But even then, I want to detach myself even more and really possibly move my main platform to something else. Because here's the reality. Instagram doesn't last for long. And sometimes I'm like, I love this content that I'm creating, but it's genuinely not going to last that long, realistically. And so I've still been considering some options and seeing how I can create content that is both aesthetic, but also something that lasts a little bit longer. And so you'll definitely hear about it as soon as I kind of come to some kind of a conclusion on this. But it's truly, to wrap it all up, it's been really wonderful to see the benefits of not being on social media and having a quieter life. And I've also been engaging more in real life interactions, which has been lovely. And I didn't even realize how much I was using Instagram as an excuse to socialize, quote unquote. But I wasn't socializing because I was in front of a computer all the time. And even my meetings were in front of a computer, which I love. I genuinely love my amazing friends. Like, I have been insanely, absurdly, unimaginably blessed with friends who are the most loyal, beautiful people in the planet. But I do get tired of staring at a screen for a lot of the day. And it was really just lovely to be able to meet people like in person. And this week I had my writing group, and I also had some friends of my sister's come over and we were all playing a board game night. And that was just amazing. It was just amazing to be able to, just enjoy real life and see the sky and see the, earth beneath your feet and not a virtual screen, and a lot of blue light. So that was a long spiel to kind of just talk about social media, but I will definitely want to be posting some of these on social media, these clips from today's episode, because I am so excited for you to be able to enjoy these amazing, amazing moments. And honestly, I think this episode was so profound. I learned so much, and I was just able to bask in the amazing stories and inspiring words of these amazing young women. Now, if you have not heard the previous episode, because this is part 2, I highly recommend that you listen to it, because that way you'll be able to hear their stories from the very beginning, how they got into writing and everything. But if you have, then I am so excited to be able to share this with you today. So without further ado, let's jump in. So yeah, I would love to hear if you could share a moment from your own writing journey that you hope will resonate with aspiring writers. Something especially a hard moment, whether it was at the beginning or something more recent or something that happened when you guys were writing novels. What's a moment that you would have loved to have someone else share when you were just starting out that would kind of give you hope or, just feel that perseverance to keep going? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Olivia.
All right. So, like I said earlier, you wouldn't know by reading my short story, but I really did struggle to write it because I just wasn't loving it. And it was a struggle every day to sit down. And it was hard, but I had to keep doing it. And I kept sitting down and writing it. So, even when it's hard, I'd say don't stop when things are hard. If you stop when they're hard, you won't grow into who you want to be, whether that's becoming a future best-selling author or just trying to get better at a skill. You need to keep trying. Write that novel, learn that skill, go talk to somebody across the room that you want to get to know. Do the hard thing and it will grow beyond what you'd hoped.
Absolutely. Oh, that's gold. That is so good.
So good. When you started out with the like, write your novel, and then you went on to list things, I thought you were going to go write this down. And I was going to be like, yeah, write this down.
I mean, you can if you want, but you've got a recording. So
Yes, so good.
Yeah, that's so, so good. And it's so true. Like, we don't realize that sometimes we run away from the pain or the uncomfortable circumstances, but what we don't realize is that uncomfortable circumstances, kind of like when people are weightlifting, that discomfort is exactly what is growing your muscles, not only as a writer, but as a person. Like on the other side of that discomfort, that is where you are going to become the person that you dream of becoming. That is how you become, like, we think of, like, these famous people and celebrities, we're like, "Oh, wow, how did they become the people that they are now?" And it's because they had to go through the stuff that we don't see. They had to go through the moments where they were crying, where they were frustrated, where they wanted to give up, and they didn't, and that's how they became the people that we see now. We just don't see all the stuff that happened before, but that's exactly the stuff that happened before is the reason why they are where they are today, and so, thank you so much, Livy. It's so true.
Yeah. I mean, mine are very similar to Libby's, because I think a lot of writers have, like most writers, anybody really has that experience of having to push through, honestly. And for me, I feel like I joined the Author Conservatory, which is the college alternative program that we're a part of. I joined that never having completed a full-length novel before, and I was joining a program where many authors had completed multiple novels, and it took me a full year to draft my first novel, which, like, seeing all of these super talented people completing like multiple novels in a year, I was like, I'm so behind. Like, I'm kind of like the problem author here. Like, I can't keep up. Which was all the things obviously in my own head. Like, nobody ever made me feel that way. But it's the comparison that, like, you look at other people and, like you were saying, you assume that they've always been in that place. Like, they've never had all the stuff that it takes before that point to lead up to get to where they are now. And so it's so interesting now, being a few years down the road, having published the anthology, having had the anthology be like a great success, which is so exciting, and now beginning to pitch and beginning to get momentum with my novels, of just realizing, like, man, you really need those hard experiences to, like, be where you are now. And if you just, like, press through and push on and get through that time, you really will come out on the other side of that, and you can trust the process in that. And just knowing that in the process, comparison never helps, even though we always do it, and sometimes it seems inevitable, but, like, it's not going to make you a better writer. It's not going to make you a better person. It's only going to kind of get in the way of those relationships that are actually vital. Like, the relationships that you make are vital to your career no matter what. And so really trying to, like, press into other people and support other people when you do feel like you're in those low places. Because the amazing thing is, once you get through that and once you're, like, on the other side of that, they're going to come back around and support you, which I feel like for us with the anthology, we all just felt so incredibly supported the whole time, with all of the author conservatory students. Like, they rallied around us and were just amazing. And even our in-person communities, for me, was just absolutely wonderful. So yeah.
I love that. Yes, it's so true, and it can be so tempting when you're in the middle of it all, and especially when you're in that hard season, it can be so tempting to compare yourself to where others are, and maybe they literally just came out of that hard season in their life.
Mhm.
But again, we sometimes never know because we rely on what we see on, for example, social media or something like
Right.
that. And it can be so like easy for us to compare ourselves to other people when I think all the while I think God is even using like our circumstances to shape us, to form us into the people he wants us to be. And when we shy away from that or we think, "Oh my goodness, I'm not where I wanted to be," especially when we think, "Oh, age-wise, this is where I wanted to be. I thought I was gonna be here, but I'm not." I think it's so crucial to, like, as you said,
Mhm.
just persevere through that. Ignore the voices in your head that are saying, "You should be this, you should be that, you should be." They're not gonna help you at all. In fact, it's just focusing on that finish line. Okay, what is my goal? It's not about what everybody else on the racetrack is doing. It's about what you are doing and what your goals are and just persevering through
Mhm.
that. I love that so much.
Yes, absolutely. Claps for that. That was awesome.
No, I'm just working off of what you guys are doing and you guys have just grown. Like I can just tell that you guys have grown so much from like just this beautiful experience of working together. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Hope.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of similar because, like Abby said, it's, pushing through. I think as my experience with getting ongoing critique from my author conservatories instructors on my novel, I was working toward getting clear to draft, and it took me so long. I ended up just coming back over and over and over with my outline and hearing things like it's getting there or we're almost there, but never actually arriving. And of
Mhm.
course, it was a tough experience, and I battled discouragement, and I wanted to give up a lot of a lot of times there. But I pushed through. I did get cleared to draft, and I'd like to say it's one of my strongest, best novels I've written, but it is a messy thing. It needs a lot of work. I mean, I think the heart is really there, but I think my point in that story is it did help me grow a ton, not only in just the fundamentals of writing, but in perseverance. I think we can be tempted to kind of question the value of our messy projects or experiences, but I'd like to kind of push back on that and just encourage writers that our struggles and imperfect projects aren't wasted. They help us grow, going as far as to grow us as people too, or as little as building our perseverance and ability to keep getting back up after getting knocked down over and over.
That's beautiful. Yes. And honestly, I feel like just like you were saying before, like the short story may have been something that you were like, this is not what I signed up for." um, but it's actually the little things that kind of surprise us, that grow us, and that become things that we didn't expect. I'm sure that when you started writing your short story, you didn't expect it to blow up the way that it did.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, exactly. And yet, like your story proves, like it's those little things. It's the pushback. Okay, work a little harder on this. Do this. Let's change this a little bit more. Let's do this. Even that, those little interruptions in the plans, I'm sure they grew you immensely as a person. Like they probably grew you in patience and in perseverance. And I think it's so important because it's more than just the writing. It's about who we become through the writing process because in the end, all of our writing is like the truly good writing is going to come from deep inside of us and who we are as a person. Ernest Hemingway had like his famous quote where he was saying, "Write the truest sentence you know." But if you're going to write the truest sentence you know, you've got to write from somewhere that's deep, deep within, like the truest things that you know from your own experience. And honestly, the whole writing process is in itself what's building you up to be able to write that beautiful novel you want to write those true sentences, to write those true words, to write that true story that you want to communicate to the world. So I loved hearing from you guys and your beautiful stories. And thank you so much for honestly being so vulnerable and sharing your stories. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
I don't know about you, but in my experience, book shopping can be both exhilarating and exhausting. Exhilarating because new books. Need I say more? But also exhausting because sometimes those books end up disappointing you, either because they promise something they don't deliver, ruin a story with unexpected agendas that really weren't necessary, or have content you just don't feel comfortable with. And I know I'm not the only one who's had to DNF a book because of one of the previous reasons. But what if I told you I could save you a lot of that disappointment? Well, I've got some exciting news for you. I've teamed up with bookshop.org to bring you my very own bookshop. That's right. You can now find all my handpicked book recommendations in one convenient spot, complete with content warnings and personal notes from me, so you can find the perfect book for you. Whether you're into gripping thrillers, heartwarming romances, or thought-provoking nonfiction, I've got something just for you. So head over to the link in the show notes below or go to bookshop.org/shop/Her Reading Life Podcast. That's bookshop.org/shop/Her Reading Life Podcast and discover a world of books that I absolutely love and know you will too. Supporting my shop not only gets you amazing books, but it also supports local independent bookstores. So it's a win-win. Don't miss out. Check out my recommended reads today and let's embark on some incredible literary adventures together. Hey there, lovely listeners. I have the most fantastic opportunity to share with you today. How would you like to join the street team for Novelists in November short story collection featuring my very own short story, which you'll be the first to discover the title and story blurb if you join? This enchanting anthology is launching this November, and I'd be absolutely delighted to have you join us. Picture this. Dark academia vibes, cozy sweaters, rain pattering on your window, and all your favorite bookish feels with a mug of hot tea or pumpkin latte. That's the essence of this collection. By joining our street team, you'll get exclusive behind-the-scenes info, early access to the cover, sneak peeks of the stories, first dibs on pre-orders, and some very special gifts I'm personally designing just for you. And the best part? There are no requirements. It's super flexible to fit your schedule. We're planning an exciting cover reveal in June and story and title reveal earlier in the month. Plus, you'll get an early ebook copy of the anthology and see our book cover before anyone else. So, if you would love to be part of this cozy autumnal adventure, click the link in the show notes and join the rest of our bookish friends on the street team, or visit bio.site/ShiraJRodriguez. That's bio.site/ShiraJRodriguez. Thank you so much for your incredible support and enthusiasm. I'm truly grateful for you, and I can't wait to see you on the team. Hey there, listeners. Before we dive back into today's episode, I want to take a quick moment to talk about something really important. Reviews are the lifeblood of any podcast. They not only let us know what you're loving about the show, but also help others discover the beauty of living, giving, and repeating. So if you're enjoying the content we're putting out, here's a small favor I'd love to ask. Could you take just a minute or two to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform? Whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other platform you listen on, your reviews make a world of difference. By leaving a review, you're not just sharing your thoughts with us, but you're also helping us climb the charts and reach more listeners who might benefit from our discussions. Plus, it's a wonderful way to show your support for the content you love. So friends, if you're finding value, inspiration, or even just a good laugh in any of these episodes, please consider dropping a review. It only takes a moment, but it means the world to us. And hey, if you want to go the extra mile, share the podcast with your friends, family, or anyone you think would benefit from these conversations. Together, we can create a community of listeners who are engaged, inspired, and ready to take on the world. All right, that's enough from me. Let's get back to the show. Thanks for being the wonderful, lovely, incredible listeners you are. And as always, enjoy the episode. And something that I would love to hear from you guys. What do you hope that your anthology will inspire and motivate in readers? Because we've been talking about writers for a really long time, but I would love to hear, like, whether we want to admit it to ourselves or not, like, we do have this dream of impacting others through our stories. We write stories, even if we're writing it in such a way that it's something that we love, we hope that it will bless somebody in the same way that we would have liked it to touch our lives if we could have found a story like this. So I'd love to hear, what do you hope that this anthology will inspire and motivate in readers?
That's a really good question. I can't speak for everybody else's short story because they have their own intent and their own hopes and beauties and inspirations behind them. For me, in my short story, I hope that the themes, the characters, the message, they'll be what girls like me were looking for, not just disabled or autistic or neurodivergent girls, but all kinds of girls who feel too broken or unfit for the world, but can still find a beautiful place in it and just see how much worth that they truly have.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. I love that. How about you, Hope?
Yeah, I think as like a whole for our anthology, I hope that our anthology will inspire and motivate readers to be brave. I think a lot of our stories reflect and kind of encourage readers to be brave in their situations. For my own, I hope it will inspire readers to press on even when the road ahead feels overwhelming and hard. That the good, the lights, and the healing at the end is worth it.
I love that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the answers of Livy and Hope. I feel like um for my story, it's definitely one of healing and learning to process grief, especially like all types of grief. Obviously there's the grief of losing a loved one, and in my story's case, losing Pops, who's their grandfather, but also it's kind of a story of like grieving like growing up, and grieving, like stepping out into your own and trying to figure out your own path. And so I feel like, especially for readers that are kind of in a similar life stage, like this is Voices of the Future anthology, so people that are voices of the future that are kind of learning to use their own voice, learning to step out as they're growing up. I just hope that it can kind of be like that they can be along in like the healing journey that Quinn goes on in my story, and just find it's definitely a very, you're kind of welcomed into this Oliver family, I hope. And so I hope that they feel like it's a safe place where they can kind of breathe for a second and like have comfort, even as you're processing like all the emotions of growing up. And obviously I've definitely had books that have done that for me, that have like felt like a safe place where they're just like giving me a little hug. One of my favorite quotes from Emma Watson, actually it's in the Harry Potter like reunion movie, is she says like, stories are a place where you can feel held. And I love that quote so much because it's just the perfect like encapsulation of what I want my stories to do, and what the books that I love are ones that feel like you can be held. And so yeah, that was a rambly answer to say just a place where readers can relax for a second and find healing there.
I love that. No, honestly, that was perfect. And honestly, thank you so much, you guys, for just sharing that. I love that. And truly, all of your answers, like they all come back to that point of like helping readers find home wherever it might be, whether it's for the girl that feels that she's too broken, someone who's looking for like that sense of family, or for someone who's just trying to find a place of belonging in a world that just feels cracked and shattered and lost and kind of even like dysfunctional, especially after grief and things like that. I just love how you guys are trying to bring a sense of belonging, which is so needed in the world today, whether because of politics or because of COVID or things like that. We've just all had to struggle somehow with that feeling of belonging. And I just think that it's so beautiful that you guys were able to tell stories that bring hope to readers in that way. And honestly, I would love to hear what are some future either anthology projects or writing endeavors that you are currently working on or planning. And how has the experience of creating this anthology influenced your approach to writing future projects?
Hope, do you want to start?
I can, okay. So I do not have any anthology projects planned at the moment. As far as other writing endeavors, I am editing a YA fantasy novel inspired by Studio Ghibli's Spirited Away, where a half-human girl journeys to find a legendary crescent tiger and heal the magical tiger she rescued. So, if everything goes well, I plan to be pitching this novel to traditional publishers this year. As far as what the short story kind of process is has influenced me going forward. I mean, it's definitely taught me a lot of practical things, like what I might not do and what I want to improve on. And I think definitely it impacted me in my faith journey too, with my short story and leaning into the Lord. I really went through a period of growth with my short story, with my faith in that. So that's also impacted me looking forward to other projects, and that I'd like to make sure I'm writing with the Lord.
I love that your faith has like just been impacted by even the writing of these stories, which is so beautiful and so unique. I love that so much. And I love your story concept and premise. I'm so excited for that. How
Thank
about
you.
you, Olivia?
So my project at the moment is like a mashup of Fantastic Beasts and Enola Holmes, but it's starring a young autistic girl trying to rescue fairies from a smuggling ring while juggling her family's expectations in 1912 London. I'm currently putting it through edits. It's off with an editor right now. And if all goes well, I also hope to pitch it.
That's
Yes.
so exciting. I love that. That sounds so intriguing. Like, honestly, your premises are so, so intriguing. I love them.
Yes, I love that so much. Um, like the other girls, I'm also not planning any anthologies for right now. Although I know that the Author Conservatory is releasing a new anthology coming up soon. They'll be announcing it soon. So I'm very excited for that. But yeah, for my projects, I am currently querying my main novel, which is kind of like a WandaVision meets Phantom of the Opera is how I typically pitch it. And the hook or like tagline that I love is about the memory man is in the business of grief and Briar Walters is in desperate need of his services. So I am excited for that and pitching and querying that. And then I also at some point hope to revise the novella actually that I worked on, going back to Hope talking about how, you know, projects that kind of get put to the side can still have a lot of value. At some point, I would love to revise that project and make it a full-length novel so that I can pitch that as well. So yeah, exciting.
I love that so much. You guys have like the most creative ideas. Seriously, it's so beautiful. I love it.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
Thank you.
Not at all, honestly. It's so exciting. And I can't wait to see them come out. You guys will have to let me know so I can join the launch team for those two.
Oh, yes. Everybody will know. I will be screaming it from the rooftops. So
And I'm sure
I
I'll
love
hear
it.
it all the way from my house.
yes. Yes. You will, Libby. Don't worry. Or I
I
will just
love
have to
it.
come visit you and be like, look at this book. It's mine.
I love it so much. I was so incredibly blessed to be able to hear Abbi, Hope, and Olivia's stories. It truly always inspires me just to see how the writing process can so often teach you and give you the tools to be able to create a story that is deep and that matters and that is profound and poignant, you know? Because so many times we think that it's something that can be taken down to a science. And while I respect those who do believe that it can be brought down to a science, you know, a profound book, a book that really endures, a book that can become a classic. I think that it's so much more about writing from the depths of who you are. And if you have not been able to write something true from the depths of yourself, or you feel like it's not in you yet, I think life will teach you how to write that. And sometimes in the writing process, you will find things within yourself that you didn't know you had. And so many times we're so afraid to write those things that hurt, those things that matter to us the most, because it's dangerous. It's frightening to be able to write that way. But that's exactly what makes good writing resonate with people. It's when you write from the very depths, from the very core of who you are, the things that you know are true. And I think that's what makes a good classic book, or a good book that resonates with hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands, millions of people. And so that's why I believe so much in the writing process. So many times we think, oh my goodness, it needs to be easy. No, embrace the difficulty. And I'm telling you from the perspective of somebody who had a very difficult writing process at one point for one of my novels. It was so hard that I literally had to write with my eyes closed at some points. I had to look outside of the window because I could not see my screen. My eyes were in such a bad state that I could not write looking at the screen. I had to write blindly. And before that, I even had to narrate my story into my phone because I could not write. My eyes were in such bad condition. But that made me so much stronger and be able to create the protagonist and create a story that would cover perseverance. I went through grief while I was writing that novel, and grief wound itself into my story's themes, which was something I didn't anticipate as much, but it really has shaped the way that my story has evolved and changed, and it's so much richer now than it was when I first imagined it. And I'm so grateful to God for allowing the writing process to turn it into something like that. So definitely try to take and think about your writing process not as a burden, but as a gift. It's hard, yes, but it is one of the best gifts that you could ever have because it is exactly what your story needs. Definitely tune in next time because we're going to be talking about some of these amazing writers' favorite habits. And I'm so excited because as an author that's pursuing writing as a career, I love listening to people's habits, especially other writers, because it can be so difficult to be able to balance that world inside your head and the world outside your head. And these habits can be so incredibly helpful, as well as talking about what you can do to also refill yourself, because you can often feel a little bit drained after writing, and I love being able to hear how you can refill yourself after having a long, tiring day with writing. So until next time, friends, continue to live, give, and repeat. Don't forget to ring the bell. It should be somewhere on your podcast player, because that way you will not miss another episode, and I will see you next week. Love you guys. Yay! You did it! I'm giving you a lovely big virtual hug because you just finished another episode of Her Reading Life podcast. If you'd like to access all the wonderful links I mentioned in this episode, visit my website at bio.site/Shira G. Rodriguez. That's bio.site/Shira G. Rodriguez. There you can access my blog posts, resources, and so much more. Also, check out my Instagram page for more inspirational content. And join my email list for insider secrets and exclusive updates on special events. The links are in the description box below. Also, if you could take a minute and leave a review for this podcast, that would be amazing. We're able to reach so many more people because of your reviews and ratings. I can't wait to chat with you next time, friends. Keep living, giving, and repeating.